right, we are back with the Built by Vitality podcast. Today we're going to talk about empathy. It's interesting. Again, you wouldn't correlate me and empathy together.
Nope.
But
you're more nature.
You're more nurture.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you explain what your definition of empathy, what it means to you, Phil?
Taking other people's feelings into consideration.
Yeah. Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
And we don't do this very well.
No.
I think...
Or it's just not ever a thought, really.
Yeah.
You're more concerned about your own self. Most people.
A perfect example of this would be why I think every person in the world should wait tables.
Oh, gosh.
Because I see people that are so rude to people. So rude to servers, so rude to the wait staff.
A lot of times it's not even the waiter's fault.
No, it's never.
Somebody in the kitchen gets it wrong, and you're mad at the waitress.
Very rarely is it the waitresses or the waiter's fault. It's usually outside of their control. They are literally walking from the kitchen to you and relaying what's going on. They're not making your food for you most times. But it's incredible how rude people can get, and that really bothers me. I was a terrible bartender growing up. Terrible. But I learned that. What?
I'd be scared to death to order a drink from you.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, you got to think of like the old beardless
like, hey, man, can I get a
baby
Budweiser?
face.
Nope, you're getting a water. I'm like 10-4.
But I remember thinking, I'm like, gosh, people are so rude. It doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, that's one example of having empathy because you've been there before. Mm-hmm. That's an easy one. Homelessness, that's a tough one.
Terrible.
Because a lot of people haven't been homeless before. And, we were walking in Atlanta down for a tournament for Reagan, and Charlie and I were walking, and there's homeless people everywhere. And Charlie was so concerned about why they were homeless and what we could do. She wanted to make him a bag of food and give him. She wanted to go to Walmart and get her like a cot and a sleeping bag. And I said, well, I can't do all that, But it was interesting to see it through a kid's eyes of, kids have way more empathy than adults. Mm-hmm. Whereas you might talk to an adult and they're like, well, they should just go get a job. There's jobs everywhere. I'm not giving them money. They're going to go spend it on drugs or alcohol. Yeah. And it's like, gosh, I wonder where they got, maybe they had a bad experience where they gave somebody money and they, went and bought alcohol with the money, or they saw them. Odds are that never happened. Odds are they never gave somebody money and then watched them go buy drugs or get alcohol with it. But in their mind, that's how they're justifying it.
That's what because once again, social media or TV and stuff, you'll watch a TV show and say it's in downtown New York, the show, Law and Order or something. They're like, yeah, there was somebody got robbed and murdered over here. It's like, one of the homeless people did it. They're a drug addict. Like they get this rap like that they're just a terrible person, but that's not always the case.
But guess what? What would happen if you were homeless for a period of time, for a month, whatever? Would your relationship with another homeless person be different because of the experience that you had?
Yeah.
I think it would. But we don't have the luxury of always being able to experience what the other person experiences. So we have to be able to take a step back and imagine it and say, okay, man, what are they thinking? What are they going through? I struggled with this when we would get people that wouldn't be consistent in the gym. And I got frustrated because I'm like, gosh, you come to me and you tell me that you want to change and that this is all you want. But yet you can't get in here twice a week or 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. I don't understand it. But I'm not understanding that maybe it's been 5 years. Maybe they've got all these other issues. Maybe they've got a sick child that has some type of condition where they have to take care of it all the time. Whatever. I don't know. And I wouldn't put myself in that. I wouldn't be able to empathize the way that I do now because I'm a little more mature. I say a little bit, not a ton, a little bit. And it just becomes one of these things where you get caught up in that mindset. And it's a really dangerous mindset to get into when you cannot put yourself in someone else's shoes and you cannot understand what the emotions that go with that other person are going through. And I don't know, maybe that gets a bad rap. Just because I'm not a nurturer doesn't mean I can't empathize. Just because that I kind of err on the side of I'd rather tell someone exactly what I think and not sugarcoat it doesn't mean I can't empathize.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it. It doesn't matter how hard you think you are.
It's a different form of empathy.
It's a different form of empathy.
Yeah.
And
But you're still doing it.
I will explain the story that I told you yesterday that got me onto this podcast. For 8 months, me and you have done jiu-jitsu together.
Yes.
And it's been great. We go over there.
I'm actually like 8 months in a week. You're a little behind.
Yeah, I'm a little behind. Yes. But me and you, we started together. We every time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're there for almost 3 hours a day. And strictly based on size, you're at an extremely disadvantage, disadvantage, because until you get proficient, which is we're probably
9 years away from it.
you're probably multiple years away before we're somewhat proficient in jiu-jitsu. The more basic our skill set is, the more weight comes into play. Now, obviously, me and Steve roll. I'm maybe 50 to 60 pounds more than him. Matters nothing.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I'm going to get choked out whenever he wants. It's game over. But beginner to beginner, weight matters. Size matters.
A lot.
You agree?
Yes.
So for 8 months and a week, Philip has found himself by default underneath me. And
That's where I like to play.
it's
It's not fun.
it's not. I couldn't imagine it being very fun. And again, not because of skill, because of size. A lot of times I'll catch his arm and I'll submit him because of
a lot of times, yeah, it's good.
So maybe what do you say? Well, out of maybe a couple hundred. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
So here you are.
I'm gonna bleep that part out of the podcast.
And you go every time. You never whine about it. You never complain about it. You don't pout about it. You lose. We get back to it. We get back. We do it again. And yesterday, I found myself underneath Phil, and he had me in the kind of like a choke, a headlock type of deal, and I couldn't get out of it. And I was like, man. And I don't understand why I couldn't have just said to myself, man, you know what? Phil has put up with me 240 pounds on top of him for hours and hours and hours.
You even had marks and stuff on my face, remember?
Yeah.
Skins came off and everything.
He's
taking skin off, and it was stuck to his gi.
From rubbing his face against the ground and against my gi, he's lost skin. And I know this, and I don't understand why I just wouldn't have said to myself, man, you know what? Phil got me. He put me in a good spot. I can't get out of it. I'm going to tap, and we'll reset and go. But for some reason, I didn't. And I told myself, I'm not tapping. If I go to sleep, I go to sleep. I don't care. I'll die before and I don't know why I get like that.
It's a different form of empathy.
And I should have been able to put myself in his shoes and say, gosh, you know what? He got me. And I understand what he's been through. Think about it. I've got on my calendar that the last time you got me, I put it down
7 months
there.
Ago.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, gosh, he got the best of me. Just let him have it, whatever.
What'd you do?
I'm not proud of it.
I loosened up, you rolled me over, and then you got really aggressive.
Yeah.
You were mad.
I wasn't mad.
You were mad. I felt it.
I just said to myself, I'm going to smash him.
Exactly.
He
went from 240 to 285.
I don't know why.
With your pressure.
And then I got back here and I told Nate Agnew, I said, gosh, man, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I let my competitiveness get in the way of my empathy. I should have handled that differently. So I told Phil, I said, man, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But it made me think about, that's just one example of how we can get sidetracked and we forget to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. I don't know. Honestly, 100% being honest with you, if you reverse the roles and for 8 months you're submitting me every time we roll, every single time, and you're grinding me into the mat every day, I don't know that I make it.
What do you mean?
I don't know that I keep doing it.
You keep going?
I don't know.
Oh.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about that.
I think about that.
I can.
When I tell people what we do and what normally happens, they're like, "You do that
They don't
all
have
week?"
Nobody can understand.
I'm like, "You don't understand." I said, "But typically, if we do it for 9 hours a week, I'm under Steve for 7 of those." And they're like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." And they're
No one
like,
can
"You're
understand.
crazy." I'm like, "You don't understand. Let him do it to you. You don't understand."
No. And the thing is I know that I'm aware of that, but yet even knowing that, it's hard sometimes to think that way. So I think it's got to be a conscious decision that we all make to decide that, you know what, we have to be able to empathize. And I get on Reagan all the time because as a 14-year-old girl, I can't empathize
with her
because I don't know how to put myself in that situation. Like,
you have never been a 14-year-old
No.
girl, so you were a 14-year-old boy at once, but still you can't compare them.
I've never had the emotional roller coaster of being a teenage girl, nor
especially in today's
holy
times and
Lord
everything.
And I'm so thankful that I didn't, because I'm just not wired that way. And I guess God's got a really big sense of humor by giving me 2 daughters.
Gosh.
But I don't know how to respond to so many things that happen on a daily basis because I can't even fathom what that thought process is. So that has been really eye-opening to me, to be able to try and figure out, okay, I've never been in that situation. Let me try and wrap my head around what that's like.
And empathy, I think, could change a little bit depending on what you do with yourself. So before I ever was here at the gym full time, I meet all kinds of different people from different walks of life. People's got different injuries. There's a lady in here that does PT in a wheelchair. Like, they still do it. So before I was in a gym setting all the time, and somebody like, I'm like, hey, man, you go to the gym? And they'd be like, nah, man, my back's just always bothering me. I just, I've been taking some painkillers. I just can't do that stuff. And I'm like, I kind of felt bad for them because I'm like, oh, that sucks. I wish that would go away so they could do that stuff. Then you're in a gym setting all the time, and there's people with way worse problems, way worse pains, impairments, whatever, that still come. So my empathy changed a little bit. Those people that I used to feel somewhat sorry for, I don't feel as much sorry for them anymore because I'm like, but I'm around people that have those problems or worse, and they still come. Mm-hmm. I still feel sorry for that person, but I'm like, because I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing, but I'm like, man, I'm around people that have the same issues or worse, and that I see them still doing it. Mm-hmm. So my empathy kind of almost went reverse. It almost switched a little bit.
Yeah.
Based on what you're doing.
You know what I think the number one characteristic, personality trait that will show someone if they're empathetic or not? Listening. Being a good listener. I think that's one of the reasons why people struggle with empathizing, because they don't know how to listen. All they want to do is monopolize a conversation, or they just don't think about it. If you're not a good listener, you don't really care. Like, you ask someone how they're doing, and as soon as they start to tell you, you're like, oh my gosh, I really just was hoping for a yes or no.
My girlfriend tells me that all the time. She's like, are you listening, or are you just thinking of what you're going to say back? And I'm like, I was listening.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing both.
I know.
You probably get that too, I would imagine.
I'll find myself, when I knew that the consulting thing was going to kind of need to get fizzled out, I used to do a lot of consulting with these different gym owners, and now I've got like 3 or 4 clients, and I won't get any bigger than that, because I found myself listening to them. This is years ago, and like thinking about what was going to happen when the conversation was over. Like, I was no longer engaged in the conversation. It wasn't interesting to me to listen to those problems. And that's a bad thing to be involved in. I think as a parent or a spouse or an employee or whatever, man, when you stop wanting to listen to people, or when someone comes up and wants to talk to you, and you're like, gosh, it's been 10 minutes. What are we doing now? What's for lunch?
Yeah.
I think that's a character flaw, and honestly, that's probably why you do as well as you do with PT. You know, Phil's a media guy, and I wanted to give him a couple PT clients, and now he'll go back to back to back to back to back with PT clients because people like being around you. I don't know why it is. I don't know. I would imagine it's because you're a good listener.
I listen, yeah.
You know?
We laugh, we have fun.
Yeah.
I listen to them, we talk crap.
Yep.
Yeah. It's almost like a therapy session
Yeah.
sometimes. Some people need that more than me crushing them for an hour. They just need to vent a little bit, do some working out, get a little sweat on, then they just feel better.
Maybe that has to do with maybe they're not getting any empathy anywhere else, but they're getting that from you.
The session, yeah.
You know?
I think Amy's really good at that. That's why she has so many. She's really good at, I'll see her over there. She's always talking with her client, or she's listening to them. They're laughing. They're cut. Sometimes I'll like, dang, they ain't done a set in 10 minutes. They're over there just having a good time.
Yep. You know, I think people, when they have conversations, they fear the silence, so they want to fill it with all this nonsense, this talk.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can be okay to like not say anything. You know, just. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about, but people just don't really listen that much anymore, and because they don't listen, they can't empathize because they don't. I guarantee you, if you had the mindset of, man, those homeless people should go get a job, I bet you if you went and talked to one of them and just asked them a couple questions and had them tell their story to you, and maybe their story was like, gosh. Something happened. Something tragic happened. Their house burned down, and whatever. Or they were in the military. They got out, and the VA couldn't help them get their medication. Whatever. But what happens is we never take the time to do that. You know, who's a perfect example of that? Who do we see around here all the time?
Oh, Daniel
Baker.
Oh yeah.
The guy is missing a bunch of teeth because he had some issues with. I don't know if it was. Meth or whatever it was, but
he lived on the streets forever. Probably didn't get a dentist or anything. Like he didn't get none of that stuff.
Well, he did have drug problems for sure.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. With all that, it was just a mixture, and he's had a couple strokes.
And he gets hooked up with Factory Church, and they empathize with him. They love on him a little bit, and they plug him in this network. And now he volunteers, and they gave him a mobile home to stay in. And the guy legitimately just walks around here. He's the nicest person.
Yeah.
He'll do anything for you. He's constantly looking for ways to help you, whether it's taking the trash out, washing the windows. I'll be sitting in my office, and I'll hear the squeegees going. And I'm telling you what, they look great. He does a great job. And he's always smiling, laughing. Yeah. And but if you take him and you put him back in that setting, and you don't give them a chance, and you don't empathize with a situation, then yeah.
Well, there's people that say, man, why don't they just get a job? I thought about it one time. I'm like, okay, when you go to get most jobs, they want identification. If you're homeless, the last thing you're thinking about probably is to go get some kind of ID. And if you are trying to get the ID, you got to get to the place. You have to pay for that appointment or that license or whatever the ID to get it, 10, 20, whatever it is to get it. They got to come up with that money. Then they got to get back from the place to get back to the job. There's a lot more to it than just show up for the application, you're hired.
Yeah.
When they show up to go apply and they only got the same pair of clothes they've been wearing for 4 months, it smell terrible.
Yeah.
Who's going to hire them? You ain't got no ID. There's more to it, but when you see them on the side of the street and you're like, just get a job, you bum. I'm like, wait a minute. I've thought that too before. A lot of people think like that. But there's a back thing. There's more work to that.
We looked at it, and we talked about this a lot in the Marine Corps when we would deploy to Iraq, or the Marines went to Afghanistan, whatever it was. It's so hard to lose track of what the motivation is from who we're fighting against. In Iraq, the insurgents would torture these families and tell the kids, hey, you go throw these grenades over the wall of these safe houses, or we're going to kill your dad. What are you going to do?
You're going to throw the grenade.
But who are the Marines mad at when the grenades come over?
The kids.
The Marines are mad at the kids.
Yeah.
And I get to understand. But we sat down and we talked a lot about that. And I said, listen, guys, understand who the bad guy is here. And let me tell you what you'd do. It wouldn't even have to be your dad. It'd be your dog. And you guys would throw grenades at whoever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But we had an incident where a guy was wearing a suicide vest. We were going on a vehicle patrol right in the middle of this city called Rawa. And this dude had a robe on, and you could tell something wasn't right. And man, he walked right up to the police vehicles, like one of those trucks with the machine guns in the back that was interspersed in our convoy, and man, detonated himself into all kinds of pieces.
Yeah.
And the guy that was the acting police chief at the time was an amazing guy. He was my age at the time. He was like 27 years old, in charge of everything. And he walks up and starts. Ooh. What was the what's the thing where the Mr. Potato Head, where they take
take all the parts off?
He's eating a falafel sandwich, which is, I don't know if you ever, it's like like a sandwich with meat and stuff. He's got his right hand. In his left hand, he's taking the pieces of the guy that blew himself up and putting them back together so he can try and see his face, so he knew who it was.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself,
just eating a sandwich.
I mean, taking a bite, putting an eyeball in there, taking a bite, fixing the guy's mouth. It's a flat. His head is flat. There's nothing inside. And I'm like, gosh, I got a pretty strong stomach, but this is a little too much. Yeah. Like, for this is a lot. And I remember, Hussein was the police chief's name, and he was so mad because he found out he put the guy back together and he knew the family because he knew everybody there. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a conversation with him and saying, man, what do you think drives someone to do this?
Yeah.
And, he was in a different spot. I mean, he had a lot of things going on in his life, and it was very hard for him to empathize with anybody that was willing to do that to his people. But the reality was, he goes back, and there's always a reason. There's always something that's driving people to do these things, and if we can put ourselves in their shoes and take a step back and say, gosh, I don't think maybe he's just for the cause, and boom, there's some crazy people out there. I get it. Fanatics. Got it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, what if I told you that I was going to murder your kids if you didn't go do that? What are you going to do? You're going to slap on the vest and you're going to go do it. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to
Depends if I like my kids or not.
Yeah, exactly.
I might be like, well, take them, son.
You can have one. I'll take the other one. We'll call it even.
Yeah.
But it's hard to empathize unless we sit back and we can really be cerebral about the big picture of things. And that's hard when emotions get into play. Mm-hmm. When you're 34 feet away from getting your head blown off, like, I get it. You're probably not in a spot to sit back and think about things.
Why do you do that?
But the reality is that's the challenge. And so we all have the challenge of trying to be empathetic, especially in our household. And at work, someone's having a bad day. Man, you know what? Why don't you just ask them, hey, what's up? Everything good? Can I do something? Yeah. But anyway, I think empathy is one of those things that really gets underutilized, and I think it's because we're not good listeners. Mm-hmm. I know I'm a much better listener now than I was 5 years ago.
Oh, me too.
For sure. I think that comes with maturity.
You just get better and better at it.
Yeah. Everybody's in too big of a hurry to listen.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. So moral of the story, be a good listener. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. The Mr. Potato Head story we can go into more details with next time.
Gosh.
I haven't
next episode we'll have what's his name from
Oh yeah, I haven't had a falafel sandwich yet, and
really?
I probably will never have one.
I'm gonna bring you.
That was my last one. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah, he didn't have gloves on or anything, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just straight up.
Oh my gosh! I think I could do that.
I don't know, man.
I changed the toilet thing with bare hands. Remember?
Yeah.
I think it'd be okay.
That's a little different. A little different. till you see the old intestines.
Oh, man.
You got to get those out the way. You got
Okay.
to rip those things
All right,
out.
on the next episode.
All right, guys. Until next time, this is the Built by Vitality podcast.